Hello, friends. I'm back. What's on the Frienda for today? Well, we got 3 things that we're going to talk about today. The first one is a little Python thing, another one of those little Python catch-ups. Then we've got a bigger topic that's going to cover how you can talk to classes, or how you can have, your operator talk to your panel and talk to, various different classes. And then we're going to show you a little bit more GitHub stuff. So without further ado, let's get down to it. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that cube. I'm going to add myself a monkey, just because this will make this process a little bit easier. Into our scripting tab, I'm going to create a new text file, import bippy. And what we're going to be looking at today is a data structure, I guess. I don't know. I'm using the wrong word. We'll look up what it is later, but I'll show you how to use it and what it is. So it's called try except. And basically what this allows us to do is handle an error in our code. So we can say, try to do this, except if this happens, then try this instead. So it seems maybe a little random or a little specific, but I'll show you a really basic example that I found. Then I'll show you one, like a more practical example that comes from my code. Okay, so what we're going to say is we want to shade this object smooth. So that's what it looks like when it's shaded smooth. We'll shade it flat. We want to do this in code. But there are sometimes issues with that. You can't always shade something smooth. So we'll just get rid of this for now, and we'll say, what was it? bippy.ops.shadesmooth. Okay. Runs, no problem. But what about if we're in edit mode, we're making some changes, and then we want to shade our object smooth?
No, you can't.
Well, then we get an error. We get a runtime error. So what we can try is, because that's a fairly common thing to be. You might be in object mode, you might be in edit mode, kind of switching back and forth a lot. So let's see if we can handle that case using that thing that we just talked about. So let's say, try to do this operator, except, and what do we want to do instead? We want to switch back into object mode, which is object mode, edit mode, toggle, and then we want to run this. So let's see if that works. So we are shaded flat. We can see it's blocky. Let me just move that a little bit. Then we're going to pop into edit mode, and let's see what happens. Shade smooth. So it handles our error, and it tries to do this first. That error message pops up, and then we say, okay, do this instead. And actually, before we go into the code, which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is probably an example of this thing that I'm about to tell you not to do, I will tell you that this is what's called a bare except statement. So let's take some life advice from Mo Sizlak.
Say some gangster is dissing your fly girl. You just give him one of these. Ooh.
Okay, so while that life advice is, probably great for when a gangsta is dissing your fly girl, there may be other, situations you encounter in life. So if you were to say, try just living, and then, except if a gangster disses your fly girl, then, you give one of these. So, that's going to handle that case. But let's say, you're just living, and then your house catches fire. So if you're just living, and then the error pops up, your house is on fire, you got to deal with this. And your solution to when an error pops up is to give them one of these and do a good dance. That you're going to have a bad time in that burning house. So what you want to do is you want to clarify when to use these. So we'll say except gangs, no, it'll be a capital G, gangsta dissin fly girl. So that will establish that, you'll just be living, and if, a gangsta disses your fly girl, then you give them one of these. So, you know, if the house starts on fire, you're still going to get the error message that's like, hey, house is on fire, you better do something. But if a gangsta disses your fly girl, then you're going to give them one of these. So let's see if we can adapt that to our code here. So I'll paste that back in. I'll need it twice. Except, boom. Let's indent. And what did I say? We need to toggle. So we got that edit mode toggle. And I believe it was a runtime error. And you know what? Since I can't remember, we'll comment that out with control/. And let's make sure you are shaded flat. And pop into edit mode. And then we, oops, expected. Oh, right. Okay. You're going to be like this with me, Blender, huh? You're going to be like this? You're going to make me do things properly? Okay, so yeah, except runtime error. Let's try that out. And you can uncomment things the same way you comment them, control/. So let's get our indentation back, and let's put in here, except runtime error, and let's see what happens. It works. Okay, so I said I would show you the practical example. So this is it from my add-on RightMouse navigation. So where is it? 92 to 95. Yeah, I totally didn't put in any exception. Anyway, moving right past that. So the issue here was I need to call a menu. And depending on which viewport mode you're in, which 3D viewport mode you're in, you will either call a menu or a panel. So this was the perfect, solution for me, because it's basically you either do one or the other. So you either call a menu if you're in a menu type mode, or you call a panel. Try to call a menu, except if an error pops up, then call a panel. Okay. So that is a try and except. There's also a finally that you can put in to, to catch whatever else you need. You can also, filter stuff out with conditionals like if statements before you get to that point. But that's a nice that's a nice little way to kind of handle errors, catch errors. If you're in a situation where it's something simple like that, you just need to be in object mode for it to work. Then you can use a try and except to switch modes around and not cause your code to maybe stop halfway through the function. Okay, so that covers it for the try except stuff. The next thing we're going to talk about is a way to communicate between classes. So we talked before in that one where we were making the materials, and we talked about how we could basically just reuse some code, copy and paste, because one function isn't really aware of what another function is doing. And that was great in that example, but that can kind of come back to bite you, because sometimes you want two different classes to be able to communicate. So for example, and this is what we're going to look at today, we're going to upgrade that ToonUp add-on to be able to take user input and I'll save all the practical stuff. We'll just deal quickly with how we're going to do it. So basically, if you try to say in your panel, I want to use this color, and then pass that info to your operator can't see the panel's color. So you'll have to go into your panel and create a new color and blah, 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 blah. And basically, there's no connection between those variables.
Well, there isn't a literal connection.
No, Walter, face it, there isn't any connection.
So if you want to be able to communicate between classes, between operators and panels, and to take user input, you're going to use something called a property. So full screen there. So property definitions. This is the page from the API that you can check out. And basically this is the class that communicates between different classes. So it's a little bit, or I don't know, it was for me a little bit tricky to get a handle on using these at first, but I'm going to show you a little what I think is kind of a pretty simple way to get your head around how they work and what you can do with them. So now that I've shown you the page, I'll put the link in the description like usual. We'll close that up, and then we can navigate over to, whoops, I can't get this tab over. Navigate to ToonUp and click code, download zip. So I've already got it downloaded. You unzip and open the file in your favorite text editor. So I will open it up here in VS Code for the time being. What do we want to try and do? So I thought it would be cool to give the user some control over the colors. So, you know, I was breaking the Toon Shader material down into mids, shadows, and highlights. And then there's the outline as well. So why don't we give the user control over what those properties are going to be? So how does the user interact with our code? Via the panel, via the UI. So we can create, you know, a property in here, but then we still need to pass it on to this, our ToonUp function, which then gets called inside of this. And you'll quickly see, like I mentioned before, if we kind of try and declare something in one, it's not going to carry through to the others. It's not like a global variable, essentially. So to do that, we're going to use a property. And to create a property, or in this case, to create a number of properties, we're going to use a property group. So we'll put a new class in at the top of our add-on, and we will call it ToonUp properties. And it will be bippy.types.property group. Okay. And that will get a colon. And then, so what properties do we want this to have? So like I said, we need shadow, midtone, highlight colors. So let's say shadow color. And the difference between a property and a variable that you'll create down here, like we say Toon Shader equals bippy.data.materials.new. Oh, did I move something right? Okay, undo that. Don't click and drag. Yeah, we say equals, or we use the equals operator. When you're declaring a property, you use the colon, just like when you're you know, creating a class. So we're going to say shadow color. And how do we define a color in Blender? Well, there's a couple of things you need to know. We're going to say bippy.props because we're creating a property. Actually, yeah, let's go into Blender, into the scripting tab just for a second, just for anybody who doesn't already know this. Okay, so color. It's divided into 3 or sometimes 4 different blocks. And that will look like a number between 0 and 1 for each of them. So what does that mean? RGBA, R is for red channel, G is for green channel, B is for blue channel, and A is for the alpha channel, which also means transparency. Woo. And each of those will be mapped between 0 and 1, with 0 being black and 1 being the most intense that color gets. And of course, when all of the values are 1, that will give you a pure white. When you combine all the red, green, and blue colors together, that gives you white. So that's just a tiny little explanation of how color works. So if you have, say, RGB color, you would need 3 values. So let's say 1, 1, 1. That'll give us a white color. If you need RGBA with a transparency, let's say we want fully red, no green, no blue, and then 0.5, so it's kind of transparent, a little bit see-through. So this is, you can see we're using a decimal here. This is what we would call a float vector. So it's a float because it has, or it can use decimal numbers, and it's a vector because it's more than one value. So in this case, it's a 3 vector, or a vector 3, or a 3-dimensional vector, or a 3-dimensional array. And this one is a 4D vector, a vector 4, 4-dimensional vector, whatever you want to call it. So when we want to deal with colors, because we need to deal with the red and the green and the blue and the transparency, we need to deal with 4 different values that are being addressed at the same time. So we use this thing called a float vector property, which has a very, intimidating name, but not so intimidating. It's really not too bad. Okay, so yeah, just quickly one more time. Float because it's a decimal, vector because it uses more than one number, and property because it's a property. Booyah. Okay, so we're going to give it a name, and this name is going to be shadow, and we're going to give it a default. So this is where we say, if nobody else interacts with this, if the user doesn't put in anything, just use these values instead. So we're going to say 0, 0, 0, oops, 0, 0, 0, 1. Okay, so 0, this will give us a black color. 1 here means it's not transparent, so we'll be able to see it. We're not really going to be using transparency at all in this add-on, in this property, but just because we're affecting the colors that we are, they take an alpha property, so we have to supply that. So we're also going to say that we have a minimum value that we can't go below, because if a color goes below 0...
How much more black could this be? And the answer is none.
That just doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really do anything. If a color goes above 1, it starts to do some funky stuff where it kind of becomes emissive. Okay, I'll finish talking about the first thing. So yeah, basically we need to get the proper, response. We need the value to be somewhere between 0 and 1. So we're setting the maximum between 0 and 1 so that the user can't enter any value larger than 1 and smaller than 0. The next thing we are going to define is size. So if you're used to, coming from a game engine or something, and like I said, these are sometimes called vector 3 and vector 4, you may see them defined as their own separate classes. But in Blender, you just create a float vector and then you define the size later. So this is 4 values, so we assign it the value of 4. Or 4 numbers, so we assign it the number 4. That was probably confusing. Okay. I'm not going to do anything else with that just yet. Let's set up the rest of our stuff here. So this is basically how it's going to look for the shadow color, the midtone color, the highlight color, and the outline color. So I'll put the video on fast forward and I'll code the rest of this. Or actually, now I'll put the video on fast forward because I should just be copying and pasting. Okay, so that gives us a property group. We've correctly. All right, you know what? I'm going to skip the whatever trial by error. So if we put this in as it is, it's going to show up just as numbers. So we're not actually going to see it as a color, even though we're saying, we want to use this as a color. So there's another thing that we can add to a float vector property because they could be used to represent multiple things. So like if you're using a 3 vector property, you could be talking about an object's location in 3D space. If you're talking about a 2D vector, maybe you're talking about, a UV coordinate or something. So, if you want to define an object's location in space, using a color picker is not the easiest way to do it. If you want to define a color, using 3 separate numbers is not the easiest way to do it. So the way that we handle that is by dealing with a thing called subtype. And it's one of those enum properties, so it gets that block capitals and the quotation marks. So let's just put that into each of our properties. Okay, so now that is the correct setup. This will give us 4 separate properties that we can assign, but they're not connected to anything. And like I said, properties are the way that you connect things, that you get things to talk to one another. So how do we get these 4 things into the rest of this code? So we're going to come from the top, we're going to skip to the very bottom, and we're going to actually, before we go any further, let's register our class. So zip down to the bottom. So that's added to our class list now. That will be registered along with the other classes, but still it's not communicating. It's not getting into these other things. So how do we get it to communicate? We register it with the scene. So we're going to say bippy.types.scene with a capital S. We'll just call it ToonUp properties is a bippy props pointer property. So yeah, I can just autofill that. And the type will be ToonUp properties. And there it is being autofilled for us. So what this allows us to do, we're registering this with the scene in Blender. This allows us to call anything from within the scene. So now that we have this registered with the scene, we can tell each of these individually to look at the scene to figure out what we need to do. So let's look at this ToonUp. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to say ToonUp properties is bippy.context. So now we are making sure that we're grabbing something from the currently active scene, the currently active file. Scene dot tune up properties. Okay, so this, we've registered it to our scene as a scene type. We're now going in the context of our current scene, and we're saying this convenience variable that we're creating, it is this scene variable. And what is this scene variable? It is a pointer property that points us to our ToonUp properties class that we created up here and registered down here. So how do we now integrate this into our code? Well, it's actually pretty simple. That was kind of the complex stuff, getting it all set up. So what we're going to do is we are setting the 1 color here. So it's 0, 1, and 2 are the 3 colors that we want to affect. And 1 is the midtone. So I'm going to say ToonUp properties dot midtone color. Is that what I called it? Yes, it is. Okay, and then we're just going to copy that whole line. Yeah, I should just triple click. It'll make things a little easier on me. And paste that again. So this first one we're going to say is 0, which I'm going to call the shadow color. Then we've got the highlight color at index 2. And then the last one that we need to deal with is, and you know what, this is, okay, we do say creating outline material. Let's put another little comment in here that just says outline color, because that might not be super obvious that the emission is outline. Okay, so what did we say? We're going to use ToonUp properties dot outline color. Oops, outline color. Okay, so now when our operator runs, when our function runs, we're going to run through this, and instead of setting this these things to defaults, we're now going to look up what our property defaults are and use those, unless, of course, the user has changed it and entered their own values. But that doesn't really help us out in terms of the user entering it, because like I said, it's the panel where we get the user input. So I'm going to copy this line right here. I think I copied the space. I always copy the space. And yep, see, it turns red. This is why I like using this. Get your indents right. Okay, so we will say row.prop, and it will be a ToonUp properties, and it will be the first one. What should we say? Let's make it the highlight color. Okay, let's copy that whole line. and highlight mid, shadow, outline. Okay, so that gets us our panel set up. But my spidey sense is tingling and it's telling me that something is wrong, because row works great when you have one thing. Row works great when you want to have a bunch of things set up side by side, but I want to have some, nice big color blocks. I don't think I really want everything to be crammed all together. So I think I actually want these in columns instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, Control Alt down arrow to move my cursor down across all of these, and I'm going to type column. So now we have everything laid out in a column. And you know what? I'm already like, no, that's not enough. So what I want to do is I want to put them in a box. I want to put them in a box.
I will shove you in a box.
And then we're going to do the same thing again. We are going to Control Alt down arrow to put all of these in a box. Now you can see those are in a box. And the next thing that we're going to have is, you know what? I love that box so much, I want to do it again. Whoops. Oh, and I'm glad I noticed that little mistake there. Mistake-a-roody. Okay, copy. Whoop, tab, paste. And let's give this a label. Box.label. The text will be operator. And this will also be a box. And just because I can, I'm going to say text equals ToonUp. And is that all we have to do? I think that might be all we have to do. So we've got that all kind of worked out together. So I think this is a substantial change that we've made to this. So I'm going to upgrade this to version 01, 1. I think we're ready to do some installation and testing. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to install, edit preferences, install. Okay, navigate to your .py file and install. We're going to activate it now. And let's see, it should be in our side panel. And oh, look at that. Oh, it's still in a row. Now, whatever did I do wrong? Oh, column equals layout.row. Yeah, that would be that's a big red flag right there. Okay, so like I said, sometimes you make a little stupid mistake. Let's just upgrade this to 2. Why not? Zoidberg, why not? Okay, junk that out of here. And we will be looking at the Jacques Luca Blender installer in the future. But for right now, I'm just kind of trying to keep things a little simpler. Okay, there we go. Looking a lot better. So now what we can do is test it out. So let's get a monkey and spin it around. And let's say the highlight should be bright pink. Let's say the midtone should be kind of, blue, a little bit darker than that. Let's say the shadow, we want it to be like kind of brown or golden. And the outline, we want it to be bright red. So click Suzanne and then ToonUp. Ooh, psychedelic. Funky, very funky. Okay, let's try it again. We'll get a torus happening. Move over, torus. And let's try a highlight of bright green, a midtone of red. This one's going to be blue, and the outline is going to be, there. Whoa, funkadelic. Who knows what it all means, man? Okay, so we've got something pretty cool here. Something that I think, that's neat, yeah. And I want to keep it. And I think while we do that, while we upload this, back it up with all of our changes, I think we can also take a look at 2 other things that we haven't really looked at in GitHub. So take a screenshot with your favorite screenshotting tool. And then we're going to march on back to our repository. And then we're going to add some files. And I'm going to drag it in here. And then the other thing that we're going to need is that file that we just worked with. ToonUp. Okay, so we're going to, almost did it again. Almost committed without writing anything. Okay, so what did we do? We added, let's just say, user properties for colors, highlight, shadow. Okay, I don't need anything. So added user properties for colors, and that's it. And screenshot. Okay, so here now in the message, we'll type something a little more detail. So added property group to hold variables for highlight, midtone, shadow, and outline colors. Why did I spell wrong? Accessible via the sidebar panel. Okay. Also added screenshot. Okay, great. All right. So next thing we're going to do is, once this is all processed, we are going to figure out how to get our screenshot to show up. So we're going to edit our markdown file here. And so I'm going to say the first thing that people see when they show up should be the screenshot. So I'm going to forget how to write markdown and look it up. Markdown image. Markdown. Okay, so it's text in a square bracket followed by a link in a regular bracket. So we're going to call this screenshot, and then we're going to give the relation box. I call it ToonUp screenshot. I think it's PNG. And I think, is that what we got to do? Is that what we got to do? Well, that's going to provide a link to our screenshot. That's not what we want to do. So let's edit that. Maybe we don't like the picture. So now we got something. No, that's not it. Well, I'll cut this part out of the video. Images, GitHub, README. I don't know why. I should just go to one of my other repos where I've done this like a million times. But I always forget. I always forget. Oh, did I just need the flippin' bang beforehand? Well, I'm in the right thing. Yeah, I think I just needed the bang. Okay, so let's try bang. Yep. And yeah, we don't really need anything that says screenshot. Okay, so that's one thing. That's how we add a screenshot. Do we want to look at that again? Because I made such a mess of it. So anything we put in here, I think this will show up as text. So let's say commit. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay, it's just the name of the image. Okay, let's do, actually, before we do that, let's go do one more thing. So now we've got a nice little screenshot in there. And what I want to do is I want to create a release. So if you download the zip, what you're going to get is everything in here. What I want people to have, and then, like I said, because I haven't named this init, you will have to unzip and install it yourself. So what I want people to have is just the file, just this. And I don't want people to have to go through that little rigmarole of download, zip, unzip, navigate to the folder within the folder and install that. I also don't want to name my thing init, just because I'm obstinate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a release. So we're going to go over here, create a new release. We're going to, let's see, do we have to create a new tag? v1.1 up here. Create new tag v1.1 on publish. So this one's going to be added color support. Added the ability to specify highlight, midtone, shadow, and outline colors. Exclamation point. Drop that on. And now we want to publish the release. Oh, it's so absolutely beautiful. Now someone can just click download the pie directly. So let's go back to our ToonUp. Let's edit this. We've got new installation instructions. So we're going to say navigate to the maybe we should put it in quotes. Or no, let's do whatever, bold. Releases section on the right and download ToonUp.py. And that's it. Okay, so we didn't update the README the last time. We were kind of doing a bunch of experiments on our main branch, which is a terrible idea. But like I said, we're easing you in. We're easing you in, just bit by tiny little bit. So we want to update the README with added screenshot, and what else did we do? We changed install instructions. Added the screenshot. I don't know if I need to put this again. Added the screenshot, added releases, and updated installation instructions to point to the releases section. And now we're going to find out if I bolded that or if I italicized it. What do you think? Oh, I bolded it. Okay, sweet. That is our add-on. We didn't end up using the try and accept in there, but we could throw it in if we wanted to. That was just something that I wanted to kind of make you guys aware of. Yeah, then we added some properties to our add-on, and now we've spruced up our repository a little bit by adding a screenshot to our README and also adding a release so that our users don't have to go through that annoying download process. So in the next episode, I'm going to be covering the other way that I deal with properties, or the other way that I communicate between classes, which is via add-on preferences. So this one worked well because it was in the 3D viewport. The next one will be for if you have something that you just, need to configure once type thing. Okay, so all of this stuff is live as of me recording it, which will be live by the time this video is eventually edited and uploaded. I hope you guys enjoyed. You can check out the repo for all the work that I did, and you can start adjusting, start adding your own properties, and see if you can copy this into your own add-on, because that's one of the things that I really like to do is just figure out how something works once, and okay, that's how it works. I can just use that again. So hope you enjoyed, and take care, and be wonderful to each other, and you're all the greatest human beings who have ever lived. Bye.